For a devotee of doing a dump up against the big old red gums in the background there, it's, you know, well over 2 metres tall. Certainly a good opportunity to practice your balancing skills. Very pleasant. More to the point, it's all too easy to leave our mark. You'd probably want to get your running shoes on if you're wandering. Might have to do that one day, taking a slash. You wouldn't want to drink out of it, it's all online. They look pretty good. Interesting, not sure what's going to come of it. Intriguing, it's an in and an out. We'll take that for what it is. Now we're faced with a bit of a dilemma. All these campsites, they look pretty good, but you've got to book them all online. And there's no phone signal. So we've come from the west, we've come into this country, not being able to plan ahead, not knowing when we would be here at any given time. So, you know, we weren't in a position to book anything, and now that we're here, we can't book anything anyway. There's no phone signal. There's no booking on site anywhere here. It's all online. Makes it pretty tough. Even if we had it booked in advance, only takes 1 day of a challenge somewhere, you get slightly delayed, and your whole booking schedule turns on its head. It's upside down. You just can't make up for it anywhere. So we're a bit challenged by that. So I think what we're going to have to do, it's about 120, 130 k's into Alice Springs, so we're not that far out of town really. So I think we're going to duck into town, get some phone service, and book a handful of nights. We'll probably end up staying in Alice for the night while we're there, probably tub up and refresh a little bit, and then wander back out. Yeah, it's just something to ponder. This online booking, it makes it challenging, real challenging if you're just if you're wandering. Red Bank Gorge. Pretty spectacular. Unfortunately we haven't come prepared with our togs on to be able to swim through. Very spectacular. It's late in the day, so we've got a bit of shade on it now. It's probably always got a bit of shade on it, but the sun's gone behind us, and very pleasant. The westernmost gorge of the MacDonnell Range, Red Bank Gorge, is a short 5 kilometre high clearance 4-wheel drive trail off the Namatjira Drive. 2 campsites service the area, namely woodland and ridgetop camping areas. From the car park, it's a pleasant 2 kilometre walk into the gorge along the red gum lined riverbed of the Red Bank Creek at the foot of Mount Sonder. We've decided to camp on the Finke River. I think this site's called 2 Mile Campsite. They're unmarked, unnumbered sites. It's just a stretch of river about 3 kilometres long that you can camp on, and we just collected a bucket of water for doing basic ablutions. You wouldn't want to drink out of it because over that 3 kilometres tonight looks like there's about 300 people camped on it, so along the river, and in fact they're down on the river bank, which is perfectly allowed apparently. That's what you're encouraged to do, camp down on the riverbank. But it begs the question, where are they all doing a dump or even taking a slash? It's a long way out into a bit of private country and there's not too many dunny tents set up, and those that are probably on the river gravels anyway. So I'm not too sure. So anyway, we camped up high. We opted, well, because there was no room anywhere else for one, but I just don't enjoy camping in riverbeds, and we camped up a little bit of high country overlook at that, but it's overlooking the river, and we've got a nice bluff out the back. Finke River, it's considered the oldest river in the world. We've spent a few nights on it in different places. Always offers something interesting, intriguing, more to the point at the time of the day that it is. Usually serves a purpose as well. Morning. There's an ominous breeze around this morning. It's been blowing most of the night. And it's dark. Dark behind that wind. Had a bit of a sleep in. bit after 7 now. Yeah, there's something on its way, so we might try and get the canvas packed down before it hits. Not sure what the forecast is, haven't got any phone signal. Just looking at the sky. It's not as clear as it has been for the last few days. So we'll take that for what it is. Quick breakfast. Gone with the gas this morning. Bit blowy for a fire anyway. Decided to pack down the canvas this morning first thing before any weather hits us. Not sure what's going to come of it, so it's easier to do it now. Keep it dry at least another 12 hours before we got to put it up. Keeps everything just a little bit more comfortable, easier later on. But one thing with the ominous sky is it looks awesome with a bit of sun trying to poke through. Having introduced the stretcher into his setup, the lad needs a couple extra minutes of a morning to pack down. By all accounts, this minor inconvenience is far outweighed by the improved comfort and the ability to keep the non-desirable critters and the sand out of the bedding. Mount Sonder in the background there, one of the more sought after peaks in the West MacDonnells. I think it's stage 12, might have that slightly wrong, stage 11, stage 12 of the Larapinta trail, walking track that traverses from one end to the other. So that's the terminus actually. You can get down to Red Bank Gorge, there's a car park and campsite down there, and then it's an in and an out to Mount Sonder. Might have to do that one day, that'd be an interesting walk. I think it's about a 15k return loop or return trip from Red Bank Gorge out to Mount Sonder and back. So you probably want to get your running shoes on and get going early in the morning, because I reckon late in the day should be a bit warm up there on most days. Glen Helen Gorge, once accessed through the now closed resort of the same name, is nestled about 500 metres down a newly formed and ever-changing track. The cold southerly's whipping through this gorge here, Glen Helen Gorge. It's not very long by the looks of things. The Fink River's cut through it, and it's holding a fair bit of water in this waterhole. But the southerly's just punching through. It's cold southerly. This looks like quite a deep pool here, but for a devotee of taking the plunge in icy cold water, today's probably just not quite the right day. It's a little bit warm maybe. It's great to see it so vibrant and lush. The system's obviously charged. There's evidence of some recent flooding, debris piled up against the big old red gums. But some of the cane grass is, well over 2 metres tall, so it's obviously been well watered. Good season for it. Of course, no gorge visit would be complete without the obligatory rock scramble and the teenager test of a scientific principle that perched rocks are the result of skimming them from one side of the pool to the other. Here the lad demonstrates his theory to his lifelong tutor with a chuffed sense of satisfaction. Stage 1 of our Ormiston Pound trek, 8.5 k's apparently. We're lost already. We're only 500 metres out of the car park. We're meant to be following the orange arrows, and they branch off from the blue arrows. Now we can only see blue arrows. So we're already on a scouting mission. Could be a long day. Oh, settle down, back on track. It's It's a little bit ambiguous just back there as you cross the creek. Our track was a little bit hidden, but anyway, we're back on track. Climbed pretty quickly out of the car park, woof, straight up the hill. We've got this bloody awesome view here of the Ormiston Creek. It's fantastic, and no doubt we're going to get a better view at the top, but hidden up the back there you got right up in the gap you got Mount Sonder. There's our track going through that saddle in there. You can just see the zigzag of the track through there, and it's down through here somewhere. Oh, guess what? That saddle that seems so far away and almost unobtainable, we're there. We were way down there somewhere, looking up here thinking, my God, how far away is that? Before we know it, here we are. And just to add a little bit of spice, there's a slight detour of 100 metres. I'm not sure if that's 100 up or 100 along. But, there's a detour here just to get a better view. Looking down into the pound, I suspect. And I think that given that we've put so much effort into getting to this point, we should do it. The lad's all keen. I'm halfway up there already. There's an old adage, reward for effort. Well, earn your turns is a ski adage. Not much snow here. Is that a mediocre? This is Ormiston Pound. That is spectacular. As is everything around here, actually. It's got the Ormiston River down there. We're going to follow that, hook up with it, and follow it through the gorge. So looking forward to that. But crack of a day. It took us about an hour to get to here from the car park. Just poking along, no hurry. Pretty much climbing the whole way. Bit of a descent now.
Yeah, and then you see.
We were just sitting on this narrow little ridge overlooking the pound, and for all intensive purposes we're on our own, in our own little bubble, own little world, had the place to ourselves, looking over this brilliant vista. It was fantastic, but the reality was, only feet away, maybe metres, there was a group of about 20 people all huddled together, waiting for their guide to give them instructions on what was next. But you know what? They were taking in the same view. They were having an experience not dissimilar. And if they needed the guide, they opted for the guide to get them into that situation, then good on them. Here we were, a couple of bloody larrikins from the scrub, just wandered up doing our own thing. Moved off again when we'd thought, no, that's enough, let's get out of here, get in front of them before we're held up. Probably wouldn't have been held up, they'd probably going the other way. Just all part of the thinking at the time, I suppose. Anyway, we'd taken in our view, had our moment, contemplated, but each one of those individuals that were huddled together side by side, shoulder to shoulder, waiting for their guide to give them instructions, was having a similar experience, and bloody good on them. Dare I say it, I'm probably a little bit our senior, and I'll tell you what, if I'm still able to do that when I'm their age, then bring it on. Fantastic, even if it means getting a guide to carry the pack and lug all the gear. In fact, there's actually something quite comforting in that whole concept of someone else doing all the heavy lifting. I'll have to look into that, I think. I heard somebody describe their experience walking through here the other day when asked how was the walk. They said, oh, quite spiritual. I had a bit of a chuckle at the time because I thought, what's that mean? Spiritual. And well, maybe I don't subscribe to the same theory. There is something in it. And it is a bit of a surreal place. I might have to think about that one a little bit more. When you get into a landscape like this, it is quite uplifting and gives you time to think and take it all in, contemplate. I mean, that's what exercise does, doesn't it? Mix the exercise with the landscape. Pretty potent package. I'm just coming down to the river now. The landscape will change and we'll be in for another whole experience again. Oops, Specky. What do you reckon? I reckon you should go for a swim. I reckon I should go for a swim. Right behind you. No. Not today. Down in the floor of the pound, surrounded by these towering cliffs. It's interesting, there's not a lot of vegetation in the pound. Not sure why. There's a major river running through it, or probably the source of a major river, I suspect, Ormiston River. But in general, outside of the immediate drainage line, there's not a lot of vegetation. Looks like there's been a fire at some stage, not too distant. It's a bit barren. No doubt it's all to do with the weather that's going on in here. But the river's currently holding a bit of water. I guess that's just current seasonal conditions contributing to that. By all accounts, we might have to traverse through it. There was a little note on the tourist information about this walk that said swimming may be required. Might be forced upon us. That'll be a bugger. Last couple of kilometres back through the gorge to the car park is defined as undefined. So there's no markers. You're in the creek bed. So there's only one way to go, and that's downstream through the slot, which is closing before us. Going to be in the shade in a minute, and with this breeze around, might be a little bit fresh. What do you reckon?
Too big.
Which way do we go?
That way.
Follow you. Dwarfed by the cliffs. Absolutely incredible. If one ever wants to get some perspective on their place in the world, all you got to do is come to a site like this and look at the scale of yourself within the landscape of your surroundings. It soon shows that we're merely a dot on that landscape. The scale of this is just immense. Unfortunately though, there's a lot of little dots, and collectively we culminate in some pretty serious scale. Some of these places are challenged by our presence, and it's all too easy to leave our mark, and that cumulative mark can be pretty detrimental. The floor of this gorge, Ormiston Gorge, is covered in this pink quartzite, and we find ourselves tiptoeing, or leaping in the lad's case, from rock to rock. certainly a good opportunity to practice your balancing skills. The trek through Ormiston Gorge, while surreal and an opportunity to reflect on one's place in the world, it also provides opportunity to those with youthful energy to partake in some natural parkour. Here the lad demonstrates agility and balance as he leaves his olds to reflect on a capability slowly fading from memory. With a sense of realisation, it may be time to up the ante, put into action a training regime in order to accompany the lad on future adventures. On a warm day, this will probably be quite a welcome sight. There's a breeze blowing through here, quite stiff. It's actually like walking through a refrigerator. It's bloody freezing, despite it being a beautiful day. It's icy cold in here, so I won't be going for a swim. In terms of differential, there's probably not much different in the water than it is out here at the moment. Might be warmer. It's the tidy little 8.5 kilometre walk. It took us probably 3 hours. Pretty easy going really. It was a cool day despite there not being a cloud in the sky, but it was still cool. Bit of a stiff breeze kept the temperatures down a bit. It was quite pleasant. And the hardest part of the whole walk was probably right at the end. There's a little bit of a cliff scramble to get down to the waterhole or get around the waterhole. Probably could have done it easier if we had taken the plunge. Anyway, we coped, we're here. Now we're gonna seek out a focaccia. Serpentine Chalet Dam. I'm standing in it actually, the wall's just there, have a look at that. But it was built to dam this slot, Serpentine Creek, I guess. Quite an impressive ravine in its own right, but the wall was built, this big concrete wall was built by 2 Italian carpenters, and they've left their name. They obviously put their names in the formwork before the pour, and their names are there forever now. By all accounts, it's actually a bit of a slog to get here, the narrow gorge. There's no vehicle track, but all the aggregate was brought in by surplus army 3-ton blitzers, truckload at a time, but they wouldn't have been able to get right to here, so they must have had to barrow it or cart it up to this point, because all the concrete was mixed on site. And it's a wall probably 30-40 feet across, damming this slot canyon here. The canyon wall doesn't extend back too far back from the concrete wall, and it probably would have been, I can't see how deep the pool is currently, but from the top of the dam to the current water level would be 3 metres. Would have held a fair volume of water in its day, but ultimately it was here to serve the Serpentine Chalet. It goes back, I think, back to the 1920s, but it was decommissioned in 1968, so in that sort of era somewhere, and it was built before any major roads or anything were put through this West MacDonnell. The chalet was sort of an overnight stop for bus loads of tourists that would come in 4-wheel drive buses to that point, and then get into ex-army 4-drive blitz type vehicles, buses converted, and head into the West MacDonnells and have a look at all the sites. So all these little bits and pieces add to the story, and this is only the European story, of course. It's fascinating the effort people went to, and now it's all abandoned in not very long a period of time, really. Probably what was the pump house or something, although there would have been a good head pressure from here all the way down, but been some sort of infrastructure mounted there on some footings, and the old plumbing is still evident here and there. Obviously not serviceable these days. And then just below the wall there's another little pool as well, naturally occurring. There's a series of these pools now all the way down the tracks. Interestingly, I was looking if they had a dam across this gap here, how much more water for the same height wall. There would have been a lot more water, but I suspect this old wall over here might have been a little bit fragile, potentially blow out with all this, the weight of the water behind it. No doubt the old timers had a lot of thought and planning into it before they started lugging all the gear in here to build the wall. They wanted to make sure it was going to work. These sorts of infrastructures are all over the country, and boom and bust stuff. Get a load of this place. This is called Birthday Waterhole, and it's a bloody ripper. Compared to a lot of the other spots we've been in the West MacDonnells, this one's the path less travelled. So the only vehicles we saw were the rangers heading out. They've been in here doing a bit of work. It's a few k's off the road. I'm going to say it's about 20-25k off the road, and cracking campsite just up there, just on a little bit of a ledge, elevated above the river. Should there be a deluge overnight. There is, however, there's a tour group just over there. This is part of the Larapinta walking track, an overnight stop for many, I suspect. And there's an organised tour group there, so I'm expecting that we'll see an onslaught of day walkers shortly into camp. So it was about 20-ish k's, maybe 25, not real sure, in from the main road, and it's recommended high clearance 4-wheel drive only. And yeah, fair enough, you're following the Hugh River for a fair bit of it, backwards and forwards and along it, and you go through 3, well, we're on the 3rd gap. We've passed through 2 to get here, so it's actually quite spectacular as you go through those red bluffs and the narrow gap in between, and this is the last of the gaps on the track anyway, just here. You can see through the back there, and we've pulled up right on the end. So this is all part of the West MacDonnell Range, and hence you're in the national park, and consequently there's fees involved to camp at places like this. In fact, any of these campsites costing us about $25 a night plus day entry. I think it's about $8. Well, we got a 2-week pass actually, so $25 plus day entry. That's probably not the cheapest undertaking, but you know, there's a few facilities on offer, none here, but most of these campsites have something available. Usually a toilet, designated campsites which you've got to book in advance. All of this stuff you've got to book in advance, although there's no designated site numbers at this spot. It'll still tell you online if they think it's full. Must be based on numbers, and subsequently you can't get a spot. What a cracking spot for our last night on the track. We had no idea what we're getting into coming out here. It was just a spot that was vacant, basically. We tried to book in a few nights here and there. It was wasn't a lot of options really. We had to be really flexible, and this was just one that came up to be available tonight. So here we are. Happens to be our last night on the track. Head into Alice tomorrow, have a look at the last few bits and pieces on our way into Alice, but for all intensive purposes this is the last night on the track. And I don't think it gets much better. There is a bit of a breeze, maybe if that wasn't here make it a bit more pleasant, but based on the last few nights I suspect the breeze will peter out and we'll have a still night. Or is that just wishful thinking? Anyway, the plan is we'll bloody the fire pit out shortly, get it going. I think pizza's on the menu tonight. Sun's that far off the horizon before it goes down behind this bluff just in front of us. Temperature will drop considerably. It's not all that warm, even now it's only 16 degrees. That's the sun on it, so it's not particularly warm. The breeze is influencing the chill factor a little bit too, I think. So hopefully that'll die down, otherwise we'll have to put our fire pit around the corner out the front of the truck there, and we won't have the moonlit view over the waterhole. Oh, look at that! Pizza number 1. Use the cardboard that comes in the pizza packet. Oh, perfect. What do we got? We got the pizza base, tomato paste, or in this case tomato sauce on the base. We've got 2 different sorts of meats. We've got capsicum, olives, a bit of green stuff. What's that? Spinach, and then 3 cheese. I think that's about it on these pizzas. But that time of the trip where we're just delving through our stores, whatever's left over is what goes on it. So here's one that's got to go in the cooker. We'll slide that onto the cardboard, straight over into the oven. How good's that? Oh, warm. Number 2. It took about 8 minutes. Perfect. Spot on. About 8 minutes. but it's obviously going to vary from fire to fire. But our little fire tonight, and the good wood that we're using, was about 8 minutes. Oh, let's get into it.
Yep.
Bit of a slow pack up this morning, and why wouldn't it be when you've got a, you know, such a spectacular site like this. This is our last bush camp for the trip, and it's been absolutely brilliant way to finish it off. We've still got a few sites to go yet, so don't turn off yet, that's for sure. But it's been a slow pack up, and I think it's getting colder and colder as the morning progresses. And when we got up, it was fresh, but since we've got up, all the canvas is frozen solid. Got a frost. Now that wasn't there an hour or so ago, so we're sitting there huddling closer and closer and closer to the fire. Explains it. The temperature's dropped significantly. Anyway, what a crack of a spot. Sun's just come up over the hill behind us there, so finally we're getting a bit of respite from the cold. The sun's doing its magic, just lighting up this cliff over here, and all its deep desert colours. Oh, it's brilliant. There's not a ripple on the water hole. Now this has been, well, we couldn't have asked for it actually. This has been a great campsite. We have been sharing it. There's a World Expeditions trek group over there. There's half a dozen or maybe 10 people involved in that, but they're pretty quiet, didn't make too much racket. And just over here is actually the Larapinta walking tracks, and this is one of the overnighters, and there's a couple camped around the corner there, and I think there's actually a designated campsite on the other side of the river there. I can see a bit of infrastructure over there, so a few people sort of come out of the woodwork late last night for a splash and then disappeared, so there's something going on over there. We're nearly done now. We've got about a 20 odd kilometre trek out along the Hugh River, and a great little drive, and we'll go and check out some sites beyond that. I think we've got Stanley Chasm coming up. Never been there. Never been there. It's just out of town. So we're going to go and check that out. Check that out. Stanley Chasm. That's a fair slot in the rock. Only about 3 metres wide. Bit of height to it as well. And we're very fortunate there's no one else here. There was just a busload of people heading the other way. Perfect timing. Sometimes you're in luck. What better way to finish up than a view like that. This is awesome. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed that one. Week or so of poking around in the West MacDonnell Ranges. We've had an absolute ball putting this one together. Give us a thumbs up if you like what we're doing. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Leave a comment down below. We'll try and reply to as many of them as we can. And we'll see you next time. Look after yourself. Catch up.